Happy Wednesday and welcome to a special Brain Scratch Searchlight update. I'm John Lordan. Thank you so much for spending some time here with me today. We have an unfortunate development in the Madeline Kingsbury case. Remains have been discovered. A lot of times I come on this channel to share that information, and it's quickly followed up by the new challenges in the investigation. Many times, so much time has passed that the remains are skeletonized. Sometimes it's hard to determine cause of death. What's happening with this case? Do we know cause of death? Are we further down the road in terms of finding justice for Maddie, for her family, for her two children that now have to go through life without their mother? Let's get into all the latest information here and learn about this together. Now, we did cover this case previously. I'll have a link to that Searchlight in the description box down below. But just to rewind the clock just a little bit, back to June 1st of 2023, that was Madeline Kingsbury's 27th birthday. And at that point, she'd been missing for 2 months. Madeline went missing on March 31st and has not had contact with friends or family since. The father of her children is believed to have been the last person to see her. On June 3rd, they did schedule another volunteer search effort, and they also did something kind of special. Family has asked for people to light the way home for Maddie by using blue lights for the missing mom's birthday. Which I think is just a very sweet sentiment and a good way for community members to also show support for this family. Jumping ahead to June 6th, 2023 at KARE11.com, the children of Madeline Kingsbury will remain with Kingsbury's parents at least until a custody case plays out in family court. As we sometimes see with cases of this nature, there is a custody battle that is very quickly going on here. And we're still before the actual discovery of Maddie's remains. From what I recall on our previous coverage, Adam Fravel, her boyfriend, did not have rights to the children. So the children were given to Maddie's parents basically to be taken care of while this was going on. And there was some drama that happened around that when family services came to get the kids. There was a little bit of a standoff that happened around the house. It was seemingly de-escalated and the kids were removed. But now that has basically moved this issue into courts, and it's probably still going to continue in the courts for a little bit. We're going to get some updates on where that's at currently. But back at this time, Adam Fravel asked for the children to be returned to him. Both sides acknowledged the reason the county does not want the children in his care is that police suspect his involvement in Kingsbury's disappearance. Kind of hard not to when he's the last person to be seen with her. They go to drop off the kids at daycare. They're noted as being together at that time. And then all of a sudden, he's driving around later that day. He's on his own. When he goes to pick up the kids from daycare, he's alone. So do they have a good reason to be suspicious? Absolutely. The custody issues will be moved to family court as Fravel has filed a petition for custody there. And we get to the big news for KARE11.com. Remains found in rural Minnesota identified as Maddie Kingsbury. More than 2 months after Winona resident Madeline Kingsbury went missing, police confirmed Thursday that remains found in rural Minnesota on June 7th belonged to her. Winona Police Chief Tom Williams said the property where Maddie's remains were found is a wooded area off of a gravel road near Highway 43, just north of Mabel, Minnesota, and that the area had been previously searched, but her body was concealed and not visible at that time. Based on some other descriptions I'm seeing, it was kind of off of a gravel road and then also out in the woods a little bit off of the actual gravel road. So you've got the gravel road that's off of Highway 43, and then out in the woods from there is where she was found. How did they find her there? Williams told reporters that digital evidence led a Fillmore County deputy back to that spot and the remains were discovered. So, of course, with a lot of these cases, we're always hoping for cell phone information. Can that help with tracking? And especially in a case like this, you potentially have two phones. You've got Maddie's phone, you've got Adam's phone. I don't know if they actually had records to both of them, but it seems that digital records were a big part in terms of them noting this must be the spot. If they did have access to his phone, I would assume that they noticed a stop at this location. And based on the times that I'm seeing, it looks like there's a gap. They have really done an amazing job. I got to tell you, they have a whole breakdown on the video of that minivan driving. And they literally have it from like spot to spot to spot to spot. And because of that, you see what is essentially, it looks almost like a 45 to 50-minute gap where the vehicle just isn't moving, isn't seen, and then all of a sudden they pick it back up kind of on its way back home. So it seems like, based on my guess, they probably noticed that a cell phone had stopped moving for about that period of time, 45 to 50 minutes. And if they had the location of where that was, they probably knew, okay, we got to go back. We got to go back to that particular location and search it again, even if we have searched it before. And thankfully they did. From what I understand, it was only one deputy that went out there kind of on his own based off this information, made the discovery, and then they called the teams in. While this discovery is not what we were hoping for, we're thankful to be able to bring Maddie home to her family, Police Chief Williams said. Chief Williams also acknowledged that the 69 days of not knowing Kingsbury's fate or whereabouts have been extremely hard on Maddie's family, friends, law enforcement, and community members who joined the search for her. This search effort is massive. I mean, there's literally thousands of people to thank in this. I will have a link in the description box down below to a press conference on this. You can hear about all the different departments that need to be thanked in this as well. But there was literally thousands of people that were helping this family, getting out there and searching. And if you've looked at her sister's TikTok at all, you know a bit about what the family's been going through. Her father has also been commenting publicly about what the family's been going through. Very, very tough times for this family. Obviously not going to get easier in the immediate future, but let's see where this winds up by the end of today's episode. Quote, during this time, her family never gave up. Law enforcement never gave up. The community never gave up, Chief Williams said. Authorities refused to answer detailed questions about the investigation or potential charges, insisting that they didn't want to jeopardize Fravel's prosecution. Chief Williams did say that investigators will continue to work the case and will hold anyone involved in Madeline's disappearance accountable. And we are here to tell you we will hold steadfast on that commitment. Since she disappeared, Maddie's former partner has steadfastly proclaimed his innocence in the case. Quote, I did not have anything to do with Maddie's disappearance. I want the mother of my 5-year-old and 2-year-old to be found and brought home safely. I want that more than anything, he said in a statement about 12 days after she was reported missing. Of course, we know from other information we heard, it sounds like they were separating. She was going to leave. She was looking for another place to live. And of course, that is a risk factor. Unfortunately, it sounds ridiculous to say this, but if there's any domestic violence situation going on, we know that that's a significant risk factor for women, and it appears to be the case here. Where was she found? Well, Mabel is about 60 miles southeast of Rochester and 45 miles south of Winona. It's just north of the Iowa border. He didn't quite make it there. The area is actually called Choice, and it's a little bit north and west of Mabel. Continuing at crimeonline.com, ex-boyfriend of missing mom Madeline Kingsbury arrested on suspicion of second-degree murder. So they make the discovery of her remains on a Wednesday early afternoon, and basically, I think within about 4 to 5 hours, he's arrested. Adam Fravel, 29, was booked into the Winona County Detention Center shortly after 7 p.m. Wednesday on suspicion of second-degree murder, according to the booking log there. The Winona police said on Facebook, a Fillmore County deputy found human remains on Wednesday afternoon north of Mabel, Minnesota. The body was found in some brush off Highway 43. Because of this, law enforcement personnel have arrested Adam Fravel on probable cause in connection to her disappearance. So they arrest him just on suspicion at this point. And from what I understand, they can hold him, I believe it's either 48 or 72 hours just on that kind of suspicion of charges. Within that time frame, they've got to get some formal charges filed. And do we have that happen here? Stay tuned. Fravel and Kingsbury lived together, but they were no longer in a relationship, and Kingsbury was looking to move into a home when she went missing. A little more information is now also coming out about Adam. Just a quick touch over at heavy.com. According to Fravel's LinkedIn page, he has worked under contract for a reality ad site in advertising and web media. He's got a bit of an IT background. He wrote on LinkedIn that he received an Associate of Arts and Sciences in AAS and Software and Web Development in May of 2023 from Minnesota State College Southeast. In 2016, he received a Bachelor of Science degree in MIS, Management Information Systems, from Winona State University. He graduated from Mabel Canton High School in 2012. Mabel, same direction. Basically, his family lives in Mabel, and that's the direction he went driving in. Didn't quite make it all the way there. In high school, he was on the Honor Society, Student Council. He was in choir, football, and basketball. And on Facebook, his few visible photos show him with the kids that he shares with Kingsbury. Here's a photo of him from his yearbook. And a little other factoid about this spot where she was found. While the parents' home is in the general area of where Madeline was found, I saw in the press conference someone described it as within minutes of drive time. Police want to stress that the property does not belong to anyone in the Fravel family. So the actual location where her body was found isn't owned by the Fravel family. However, other information I'm seeing says that they do take care of that property. Someone from his family, not him necessarily, does something on that property. And that's interesting to combine with the police chief's comments about, hey, we're going to hold anyone that had anything to do with this accountable. Because it's kind of interesting to me that the body would wind up at a location known to his family. If they're out there taking care of that property, see a large item out there. If they don't know what it is, are they going to figure out what it is and then call in the authorities? Probably. If they do know what it is, that raises some question. Are they in on having that information? Are they going to help try to keep that secret? It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out as things move forward here, but we're very, very early on with all this. Continuing at cbsnews.com, Kingsbury's sister, Megan Kingsbury, posted a video statement to TikTok following Fravel's arrest. Finally, he's been arrested, she said. The whirlwind is just starting all over again. This is definitely a silver lining. We're glad that he's in custody and he's not walking around as a free man anymore. Obviously, some very big feelings that this family is having to deal with at this time. Michelle Frascone, the special agent in charge of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, said investigators fielded hundreds of tips which ultimately led them to Kingsbury's body. If I recall correctly, I think it was over 400 tips. We also want to acknowledge the forensic scientists and the analysts who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes through mountains of evidence to generate leads. We're grateful for the more than 450 tips that have been sent to us. Law enforcement had evaluated each one of them and followed up in as many leads as possible. We have a comment here also from Maddie's father, David Kingsbury. He said the family was relieved that Madeline has been found after months of intensive searching and grateful for the extraordinary efforts by law enforcement, other first responders, and volunteers. He also says, quote, "We're certain that the correct person has been arrested, will be appropriately charged, and convicted of his crimes. Things are moving in the right direction, and we look forward to getting justice for Madeline. For right now, we will mourn as a family and properly and respectfully lay her to rest," he said in a statement. So I've been looking at different photos, just trying to figure out where this was. I wanted to bring up a map for you guys. Unfortunately, that area is so rural. Not all the streets are lined up on Google Maps. It's basically at Highway 43 and I believe 198th Street. And then off of that is something called Johnson Trail. And that's the approximate location. This is a picture from the location. There is a gate on it, and based on the comments I'm hearing, this does seem like it is private property of some kind. But thankfully, the deputy had no issues accessing it and making the discovery there. Adam Fravel, the former partner of Madeline Kingsbury, was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. So we do officially have charges filed. Second-degree murder, essentially murder without premeditation. A judge set his bail at $2 million without conditions or $1 million with conditions. Among those conditions, there is a no contact order with the Kingsbury parents or siblings. However, because of the parallel orders in the child protection case and custody case, Fravel could see the kids if bailed out. Obviously, that's going to be a big cause of concern. How do you handle that type of exchange? And just a cause of concern, if this is the person that did this, do we really want to put a 2- and a 5-year-old in this guy's arms? Like, I think we've seen enough situations with very tragic outcomes that are just, this is getting way too close to. So we'll see. Thankfully, we'll see some information that looks like Maddie's family is really stepping up and trying to stop that from happening. We also start hearing in these new details that a friend had called police concerned for Madeline's well-being on March 31st. And I want to call out KTTC.com because they reported on this and actually included their source materials. I read through all the source materials. They're the only site that I've seen so far that has done this, despite all of, and some bigger news names running pieces of this information. But this is the most comprehensive one. If you guys want to look into it for yourself, I'll have it at the top of the sources list down below, kttc.com. Check that link. The original files in there with all this information that you're going to need. But what did this information share with us? Fravel indicated that about 2 weeks before March 31st, Madeline had told him that she had begun a relationship with another man, but that he didn't know how long that relationship had been going on. He stated that on March 31st, together he and Madeline dropped their children off at daycare around 8 a.m. and they drove home. Once they arrived, Madeline stated that she had an online meeting and afterwards she was going to Rochester for work. He indicated he observed Madeline go downstairs to her home office. He said that he was going to spend the day making storage runs. Remember, they're separating. So supposedly he's boxing stuff up, throwing it in the minivan, and then taking that to some offsite storage. He said that when he loaded up Madeline's van, he wasn't really paying attention to what he was loading. Fravel believed he left his residence and began driving the van to Mabel at approximately 10:15 a.m. So it sounds like the story he's giving us is that he's planning on moving kind of back to his hometown, close to where his family is. He loads up the car, he starts heading in that direction. He states that when he got to Choice, which is that area that's just a bit north and west of Mabel in Fillmore County, he started thinking about what he was going to do. He said that he looked to the rear of the van and he realized that the items that he had that he wasn't paying attention to when he was boxing and moving them into the car, they were actually meant to be stored at the storage unit, not his parents' place. So essentially he drives 45 minutes, I would estimate, in the wrong direction, says, oops, I got the wrong stuff. He turns around in the driveway of a barn in Choice and drives back to the residence in Winona. So that whole drive basically has no payoff because he's saying it was an accidental drive. He didn't have the right stuff for the direction that he was going. And no way for him to corroborate his story. Like, if he actually got to his parents' house, if his mother was there or his father was there, they could say, yes, he showed up. Yes, he had a bunch of boxes. Yes, we unloaded those. All of that is gone because he's saying that didn't happen. He turned around on the drive there and went back. He believed that he arrived back at home around 11:30 a.m. and then he emptied the van at their house. So supposedly the story is he loads up the van. He has a storage unit somewhere, I don't know where. And he also has stuff that's going to his parents' house. Grabbed the wrong stuff, drove towards his parents, said, oops, this is supposed to go to storage. But he doesn't go to storage. He goes back to their house and then unloads the van. Now, if you kind of go down the train of thought that, well, this guy's obviously lying, why would he make up a lie that sounds so ridiculous like that? Maybe because when the van was noticed, seen by law enforcement, because law enforcement is on this missing persons case very quick, the back of the van was probably empty. And maybe the storage facility doesn't have anything in it. It's just a possibility. But this story is sounding pretty weird to me. He states that he also didn't make any stops on his trip to and from Choice. So once again, no way to back up his version of this story. When he entered the residence, he did not see Madeline. He said he did notice that his car was still home, and he thought that Madeline may have carpooled to Rochester. He remained at the residence for the remainder of the afternoon. During this time, he texted her, but never got a response. Eventually, he went downstairs. Madeline wasn't there. He said that he texted her regarding picking up the kids and asking about plans for dinner. When she didn't respond, he decided to pick up the children at daycare and drive them to his parents' residence in Mabel, which is another interesting turn. So you don't know where she is. You think maybe she's got a new boyfriend or something. You grab the kids, and instead of just taking them home, you decide that you're going to go to your parents' house, about an hour away. I don't know. On June 7th, around 1:30 p.m., a Fillmore County deputy located her remains wrapped in a fitted bed sheet that had been closed with black Gorilla tape, and it was in some brush off of Highway 43, approximately 1 mile from Highway 43 between Choice and Mabel. Investigators noted that during a previous search of their home in Winona, they observed a roll of black Gorilla tape that appeared to be the same color and width as the tape found on the fitted sheet that Madeline was wrapped in. It was also noted that the gray fitted sheet was similar to other bedding at the house. So when they find her, they've got a potential match on the tape, potential match on the sheets. Investigating officers learned that this property had been routinely maintained by one or more Fravel family members. This property is also near the residence of Fravel's parents. The medical examiner's office performed an autopsy. I was very relieved to see this information because I was worried this is going to be like so many of these cases when we have remains found and we can't determine cause of death. Thankfully, they did perform the autopsy, and the preliminary autopsy results determined the manner and cause of death as homicide and homicidal violence. Some of the additional details I ran into in the actual complaint order, which we're going to read a little bit more about. Honestly, it gets a little scarier, unfortunately. I believe there was some form of a towel that had been knotted up, and it was around her neck and head. So it might be, I don't know this, it might be that that is actually the item that was used for some type of strangulation as well. They might actually have the murder weapon in hand with this. What else could be scarier than all this? Directly from the complaint order for detection. During their conversations with Fravel, law enforcement disclosed to Fravel a concerned person's report that Fravel told Madeline that if she didn't listen up, that she would end up like Gabby Petito. Fravel admitted to being infatuated with the Gabby Petito case. Fravel also admitted that he made a statement to Madeline about her ending up like Gabby Petito. He's admitting this to law enforcement as they're asking him about this. Fravel claimed he was trying to make a joke. And then it goes on to note the Gabby Petito case made national news. It was a story of a 22-year-old woman who went missing. After extensive searches, Petito's remains were found near a park in Wyoming. It's reported Petito died of strangulation. The media also reported that Petito's fiance claimed responsibility for her death in a notebook. Of course, if you've been following any of the latest developments on there, there's also some question now about how much did Brian's family know or not know. It's really, really upsetting, some of the things that have come out recently around that case. But so apparently Adam infatuated with that case, and it seems like there's a possibility, yes, he's innocent until he's proven guilty, but there's a possibility he used that case as some kind of framework for what he did here. Investigating officers spoke with a friend of Madeline who indicated that sometime in 2020 or 2021, she was on a video call with Madeline, who was at her Winona residence. Madeline was standing up, holding one of her children and cooking dinner. The friend observed Fravel enter the room and yell at Madeline to keep quiet. Madeline asked Fravel to calm down, and he stated that he was not going to calm down, and he struck Madeline in the face with his hand. It appeared that Fravel was not aware he was being observed on the video call, as when the friend yelled at Fravel over the video call, he immediately left the room. The friend told investigators that there were several times during video calls that she observed bruises on Madeline's face. When the friend inquired about the bruises, Madeline would cover them with her sweater. This looks like a domestic violence situation that was going on too long and went way too far. I mean, any domestic violence is too far, but I think it's another one of those things when we're talking about risk factors, and I brought up an article. I just want to touch on this lightly with this case. People that are in situations like that sometimes need to escape them, like you're trying to figure out like a prison escape. Like sometimes people have to sock money away, have secret accounts, do whatever they have to do to get out of those situations, sometimes without their partner knowing, because it seems like that in some of these cases is the trigger. We have a whole page about domestic violence over at brainscratchers.com. I'm going to have a link to that down below. It's got a link to a video where we discuss this with several others as well, to try to put the information out there so that people can help themselves. That page also has links for all kinds of different services. So if you're dealing with anything even close to this, please check that out and please figure this out. You don't want to be one of these stories. Continuing here, Fravel's next court appearance is scheduled for July 20th, 2023. Now, on top of all that, they have also found text messages. This is noted in that document as well. This is the document that I was talking about. Once again, look at that link for kttc.com. You can read the whole complaint order for yourself here. There was some text messages between Madeline and Adam in there that were also pretty troubling, as noted here by the Sun. Madeline accused Fravel of putting his hands around her neck and pushing her in front of their children. Not okay with it at all, but especially with them there, she wrote to him. He responded, "You'll adjust." And honestly, the conversation gets even worse from that point. So just a quick stop at cbsnews.com here. In the state of Minnesota in particular, we average about 25 intimate partner homicides a year. Violence Free Minnesota says that Madeline Kingsbury is the 12th victim of intimate partner homicide this year. Obviously, it's June, so we're pretty much on track for that stat. A very terrible stat. Violence Free Minnesota says there are 4 risk factors in abusive relationships that could lead to a homicide: history of violence, threats to kill, access to firearms, and leaving the relationship. Here's a quote from Joe Shannon, the communications program manager at Violence Free Minnesota. 3 of those, threats to kill, history of violence, and leaving the relationship, those were all present in Madeline's case. Terrible. So Adam initially arrested, charges filed, and then they've moved him. He's been moved to the Olmsted County Adult Detention Center. Basically, the current jail in Winona is only used for temporary holds, and it sounds like they're undergoing some type of remodel. So they're really making sure to get everyone moved out of there as quickly as possible. He's been moved to an adult detention center, and personally, if this is our suspect and it is as clear as it looks, I hope they're getting him a long-term room ready there. Another article from kttc.com. Madeline Kingsbury's parents file motion to remove Adam Fravel's visitation and contact with the children. It seems to make a lot of sense based on the information we have so far. I do have to keep reminding us he is innocent until proven guilty, but he also didn't have rights to the children from what I understand about before this situation. Why should that have changed with the death of Madeline? I don't know, but somehow legally there's some type of shift that's happened there. Her family's stepping up to do everything they can to try to stop that. The motion notes that it is not in the children's best interest and it poses a significant safety risk. Quote, he poses a flight risk, and based upon his actions when Winona County Health and Human Services first took custody of the children, there's every reason to believe he would flee with the children, said the attorney for Madeline's parents, Anna Tobia. A disposition hearing is scheduled for June 14th. That's the day this video is coming out. So later today, some new news will happen around that. Also, since this discovery, there has been some amazing fundraising that's been going on. Supporters of Madeline Kingsbury continue to raise money for her children. People in and around Winona stepped up on Saturday with donations pouring in at a silent auction event. All money raised went to the care of Madeline Kingsbury's 2 children. From what I understand, they made over $30,000 on this. The GoFundMe for the search efforts looks like it is still open. We've made a donation to that previously. The beneficiary of this is David Kingsbury. It's Madeline's father. There's a very good chance he's going to be raising those kids. So if you want to help in terms of helping with the children at this point, I think funneling money to the GoFundMe, still probably a decent step. If you happen to prefer or want to be more direct about it, scan this link that's on the screen right now for Venmo, and you can make a donation directly to benefit Maddie Kingsbury's children. I'll also have a link to this in the description box down below, just in case you can't grab a quick screenshot of the code right this moment. And that's the latest with the Madeline Kingsbury case. I will try to keep you guys updated with significant developments around this. Based on what we're hearing in the original complaint, this looks like a pretty straightforward path, but that's not always the case once these things go to trial. We don't know what evidence could be held, what evidence will be introduced, what experts are going to say. There's still a lot of curves that this family has to face. So I just want to say thank you to the community that's supporting them, both the local community in Winona and also the digital communities supporting them as well. I think it's pretty amazing that they have this type of strong support. But it's also heartbreaking that they need this, and they're going to need this for a matter of years. Even if this is as simple and cut and dry as it looks, we're still talking a few years probably until this court case kicks off. And at that point, they're going to have to relive this whole thing in slow motion. It's a terrible thing that families go through time and time again when it comes to these cases. And unfortunately, Maddie's family is smack in the middle of it. So please keep them in your thoughts. And I appreciate you guys spending some time here to learn the latest on it. Take care, and I'll see you again here very, very soon on the LordanArts channel.